stay on mute unless we're speaking or planning to speak. And if you're on the phone, you can use *6 to be able to speak. We also want to make sure that you raise your Zoom hand. And so that's the way that you can ask questions during Q&A or during discussions, and make sure that we, stick to the Zoom hands to be able to call on folks. And as I mentioned before, residents that are in the stipend program, we want to make sure that we know what that you're on, that you're logged on with your Zoom name, and that you stay for at least 75% of the meeting to be eligible for a stipend. And we are both recording this meeting and it's being live streamed on social media so that folks in the public can see this or watch this later as well, or anyone that could not attend tonight. So very quickly, you've seen these before. For all of the meetings that we have as a CSC, our goals are to have a productive discussion and respectful dialogue. To do this, we want to make sure we help achieve the meeting goals by focusing on solutions, let everyone participate. And this is about stepping up and stepping back. So really making sure you share your voice as well as give space for others to share, to be civil and respectful, to stay on point and on time, knowing that we have a lot on these agendas, but we also want to make sure that we hear from everyone. To also attack the problem, not the person, to really focus on the issues that we're talking about, to not have it become personal or attack individuals, and also to seek common ground and to build consensus. Okay. So very quickly, I'll run through the agenda. So we'll start with welcome and introductions. I'll hand it over to Ryan and the Air District in a minute, and very quickly run through this agenda. So we'll start out with Foundations of Air Quality, a presentation by the Air District staff. And while we're doing that, we're going to get ready for the vote for the Community Steering Committee Charter. And so we'll do that as right after the first presentation. After that, we'll have another presentation by about the air pollution and public health by Dr. Heather Bolstadt, and then we'll wrap up and have time for public comment. So that's kind of the big picture. And we'll describe a little bit more about kind of how we're going to do the voting today in a way that we're hoping can speed up the process. So that's the goal with that as well. So from there, I'd love to hand it over to Ryan in the Air District.
Thanks, Julia. So good to be here tonight along with everybody. Great to see great participation once again at the Arvin Lamont AB 617 Steering Committee meeting. Have a good agenda for you. It's really going to be laying a lot of the groundwork and providing a lot of information to the committee on the things that the Air District does and some of the background, and as well as the health impacts from air pollution. And very appreciative of Dr. Bolstadt being here tonight to present on behalf of the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. I know that she spent a lot of time in putting together a really informative presentation. I also want to thank our co-hosts, our co-leads, Gus Aguirre Jr. and Bianca Santoya for looking at the presentations and providing feedback on how to present and share this information with all of you, and to get the maximum benefit of that. So yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to our co-leads. Correct, Julia?
Sure, yeah, if you'd like to share, yeah. Would our co-leads like to chime in? Go ahead.
Yes, how's it going? Good afternoon. This is Gustavo Aguirre Jr. with Central California Environmental Justice Network. And thank you very much, District and Facilitator, for this ability. So, tonight I think it's exciting because we get, very high level overviews of air pollution, kind of what it is, but also get the public health and environmental potential effects to it. So, I think, this will be a great opportunity to really kind of tune in. So thankful for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Gus. All right. So from there, we can move on to our first presentation with the Air District on Foundations of Air Quality.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, John Spagnero here. I'm a program manager at the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, and thanks everyone for your kind attention. I'm really happy to be here to present this slide deck to you about the fundamentals or foundations of air quality. As Ryan and Gus teed me up, it's a very high level overview of air pollution and what the Air District does to control pollution, our rules and regulations, our air quality monitoring network. So there's a lot of topics to cover. So without further ado, I'll share my screen. Make sure you guys can see it here. Okay, can you guys see the first slide?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful, thank you, Julia. Okay, so with that introduction, so the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District is responsible for air quality in 8 counties depicted on the map there. We have our northern region in orange, our central region in blue, and our southern region in green, and the 8 counties depicted there. And the Air District has a 15-member governing board. The Air District regulates stationary sources across the district. And also we provide grant funding for all sorts of air pollution emitting sources and operations throughout the district, not just stationary sources. We also have grant funding for mobile sources as well, which we'll get into a little bit later. The district is also responsible for meeting the EPA and CARB mandates to improve public health. And so here's a quick slide to highlight some sources of air pollution. We'll revisit the sources of air pollution a little bit later and share sources that are more unique to the Arvin Lamont community. So this is more of a high level sources of pollution. On-road heavy duty vehicle traffic, you can see that there. You can see off-road agricultural equipment, commercial charbroiling and cooking, residential wood burning, factories and stationary sources. So those are all the different sources that contribute to air quality or air pollution, I should say, district-wide.
John, before you chime in or continue, I just want to make sure that we all speak pretty slowly so that the interpreters can catch everything that we're saying. So you're not speaking fast, but just make sure you're also like not, don't speed up at all.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julia. So the first pollutant of concern is ozone. And ozone's a main component of summertime smog. Notably, ozone isn't emitted directly like other pollutants are. It's formed by the chemical reaction of NOx or nitrogen oxides and VOCs or volatile organic compounds. When those two reactants are in the presence of heat and sunlight, ozone is formed. And as you can see in the image there, and in that last bullet on the left, most of the, or over 80% of the NOx in the valley is produced by trucks and other on-road vehicles, as well as off-road vehicles. So again, ozone is not formed directly. It is formed by a chemical reaction in the presence of heat and sunlight. Another key pollutant is particulate matter, and that comes in 2 flavors. There's PM 2.5, which is really small, 2.5 microns in diameter or smaller, and PM 10, which is slightly larger, but also pretty small. You can see in the image there a kind of relative picture that illustrates the size of PM 10 and PM 2.5 as compared to a hair, a human hair diameter. The PM 2.5, typically that comes from combustion particles, organic compounds, metals, and so on. And PM 10 is typically dust, pollen, mold, things of that nature. And so here we go back to the sources of air pollution, but more specifically to Arvin and Lamont and the community here. There's the mobile on-road sources, which are regulated by the state and federal agencies, such as heavy-duty truck traffic and your main roadways like Highway 184 and 223. There's also the off-road sources, also regulated by state and federal agencies like agricultural and construction equipment. And the stationary sources that the district regulates. There's oil and gas operations and oil and gas tanks. There's water treatment operations in the community, gas stations, restaurants, etc. And then there's area-wide sources as well, regulated by various agencies. And that's those area-wide sources are on-road dust, fireplace smoke, and cooking emissions. And then lastly, there's pesticides, which are present in the community. And that pesticides are regulated by the California Department of Pesticide Regulation, or DPR. So drilling down a little bit further into PM 2.5 and PM 10, again, PM 2.5 is 2.5 microns or smaller and consists of emissions typically from burning and combustion. It's more dangerous to health because those particles can travel deeper into lung tissue, more dangerous than PM 10, I should say, for that reason. PM 10 is 10 microns and smaller, typically dust, again, pollen, mold, and what have you, and is generally less dangerous than PM 2.5. And it's relevant to re-mention NOx here. I know this is a PM slide, but because NOx is a precursor to PM 2.5 creation, just like ozone, NOx contributes both to ozone and to PM 2.5. It's important to keep NOx in mind when we're talking about either ozone or PM 2.5. So I wanted to reiterate the presence of NOx and the dominant contributors to NOx in the community. And so, okay, there's a lot of different sources of emissions that we've discussed already. And how do we quantify them? How do we know how much is out there? How much ozone is out there? How much NOx and PM, particulate matter, are out there? Well, the Air District conducts an emission inventory on an annual basis, which is an accounting of all of the emissions from sources of pollution in the community. The district collects stationary source emissions, whereas the state collects area and mobile emissions. And then we compile those emissions together, we add them together, and we get a full emissions inventory. Upcoming meetings for the CSC, for this community steering committee, will drill deeper down into emissions inventory and what the specific inventories are from the various sources and what pollutants exactly are contributing the most significantly to pollution in the community. And furthermore, that's important because understanding the emission sources, where they're coming from, will help to steer scientifically and with full awareness how the community emission reduction program and the measures within it will abate and control and improve air quality by potentially targeting those measures around sources of the most impact. So emission inventory is super important, and that'll be continued or discussed in more detail in future meetings. And so, okay, what does the district do? We collect inventory. We are here to control air pollution. It's in our name, the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. Well, we do quite a few things. We work with the state to improve public health and reduce those pollutants that we discussed, NOx, PM 2.5, and ozone. I've already talked about them quite a bit, but the district also adopts rules and regulations to control the emissions that stationary sources can emit. And furthermore, we don't just put the rules out there, we also have a fleet of inspectors that go to all of our permitted facilities throughout the district and ensure that they're complying with the rules and regulations that we put out there. And of course, there's also a very robust grants and incentives program, multiple grants and incentives programs aimed at reducing and incentivizing the reduction of pollution by getting a lot of old, dirtier equipment out of the community and replacing it all with newer, cleaner equipment. And furthermore, another thing that the district does is we have a really comprehensive monitoring network. There's multiple monitoring stations throughout the district, and I'll show a few slides later on that, which collect and sample air throughout the district and report the levels of air pollution at various locations throughout the region. So rules and regulations, businesses, industrial sources, residents, and municipalities must comply with the regulations that the district adopts and promulgates. Overall, we've adopted or amended over 650 rules and regulations, again, for stationary sources, while CARB, the California Resources Board, and federal EPA, responsible for rules and regulations for mobile and area-wide sources, they take care of that enforcement and regulation. And of course, again, we have these rules and regulations, but we also enforce them. And we do over 9,000 inspections at permanent facilities per year. We respond to over 3,000 complaints per year from the public. And that complaint system is 24/7, 365, and is a two-way street with members of the community. When you see something, say something, you can call us. You can go to our app and put in a complaint that way or directly through our website, and an inspector will respond and get back to the complainant to describe what they found during their investigation. So there's a very robust inspection and permitting process. This next slide here, I'm jumping into grants now. There's various different pillars in our grant department and our grant programs. One of those pillars is opportunities for residents, so members of the community. There's lawn and garden equipment incentive programs, many more than what are listed on these next few slides, but here's just a few highlights for you guys. Passenger vehicle incentives. Say you have an old car that won't pass smog and you can't afford to get the repairs done. You'll be able to apply to potentially get funding to get those repairs taken care of so that you can pass smog, and that vehicle that you rely on to get to work is ready for you. So there's that program. There's a vehicle replacement program as well. And there's also a wood burning fireplace or wood burning stove replacement program, all available for residents. The other pillar is agricultural operations and incentive and grant programs for them, such as the tractor replacement program, the low dust nut harvester replacement program, alternatives to open ag burning. In the bottom right, you can see that program at work. Instead of burning that removal on the left of the excavator and the chipper, this farmer has opted to participate in our alternative program to burning and is chipping that material instead, and will either incorporate or broadcast the chipped wood instead of burning it. So that's fantastic. It's a really exciting program that we're happy to have out there. And then of course there's the agricultural pump replacement program. Okay, the third pillar of our grant programs helps out businesses and public agencies. What can they do and what can we do to get heavy duty trucks that are, again, the highest NOx polluters off of the roads and replace them with near zero emission or zero emission alternatives. So there's the truck replacement program for that. There's the commercial garden equipment replacement program, and there's an electric vehicle charging station program as well. It's called Charge Up. And if you want to know more about any of these programs, you can go to valleyair.org/grants and surf around there, and you'll see all of these different programs that we offer and more, and the guidelines for all of them. Okay, so lastly, almost lastly, there's one more topic after this actually, is the district's air monitoring network that I've talked about a couple of times. So we invest a significant amount of resources and efforts as a district into maintaining an extensive regional air quality monitoring network. That map on the right shows the approximate location and distribution of all of our monitoring stations. There's numerous sites throughout the valley, as you can see. They provide timely information to the public. I'll get to that in a future slide. And the district also follows really strict federal guidelines for scheduled maintenance of these monitoring stations, calibrating the equipment to ensure they're accurate, and then the certifications for the equipment as well. There's regular independent audits by the California Air Resources Board and the federal EPA. Our staff, our monitoring team, the fleet that maintains this equipment, very well trained, very highly specialized professionals that maintain this equipment and again keep it accurate and precise and well operated. And then we ensure that that data is high. By all those measures, we ensure that the data collected is high quality and defensible when compared against air quality standards. And there on the bottom right is a picture of one of those monitoring stations that we have. So that was the regulatory monitoring network. This here is a quick slide just to introduce everyone to community air monitoring in Arvin, that could be in Arvin and Lamont. We have mobile vans at our disposal, fully loaded trailers, compact multi-pollutant systems, and standalone PM 2.5 monitors. So the chief difference between this equipment and the equipment that was shown on the last slide is the mobility of this community monitoring system and the ability to put a monitor near a source of concern and upwind of a source of concern, downwind of a source of concern, and really drill down on where pollutants of interest are coming from and what those sources are. So this is a very cool program that again will be further discussed in greater detail in future meetings. And then here's how, if you're interested, you might find out about air quality in your area. So we have this great monitoring system. All these monitors are out there collecting air quality data, reporting ozone concentrations, reporting particulate matter concentrations. How do you know what the air quality is where you are? Well, you can go online to myran.com. That's a district product that you can enter in your location, and it'll tell you through an ongoing graph or continuous graph, as you can see what the pollutant concentrations are at that location that you entered into the program. You can also go download the Valley Air app. It's free, and that has the same reporting system as well. It can sense your location, current location, or you can type in locations that you want to monitor and save those locations. And so that's a great tool. It's available for anyone, free of use, free of charge, to just be appraised and know what the air quality is, not just where you are, but any place around you that you're concerned about. So we're really proud of that program. And with all that said, everyone, thanks again for your kind attention. I hope you learned something from this, and I look forward to answering any questions. And hopefully, yeah, this was useful and helpful for you all. So I'll turn it back to you, Julia.
Great, thank you, John. Excellent. So we'd love to open it up for any questions, thoughts for John or others based on this presentation. Thank you, John. Okay, sounds like we have no questions. So everything was super clear. Nothing that's piqued your.
Yeah, I got a question.
Oh, great.
I'm trying to figure out when you were saying about the monitors are so certain places, but if you log in and all that, but for you want to find out if that air is bad, and if it don't show how bad the air quality is at, how could we do it to put a monitor close to the place? Or what way could we find out how bad is the air quality is right there?
Sure, good question, LB. I'll give that a shot. So the
Mario,
pardon me.
Mario.
The reports that you'll see in the graph that you see on the RAN system or on the website or on the app, those are pulling air quality data from the nearest air monitoring location to wherever it is that you're interested in, the nearest one. And if there's missing data in that graph, it could be because that monitor is down for maintenance at that time, and that data could be backfilled by the monitoring team when they're done with their maintenance. And then to your other question, if you wanted to discuss the possibility of having a specific monitor added to a specific location, that's going to be a part of this community steering committee's discussions on how to set up your community air monitoring network. So you can pick where you want these monitors to go. So you have that flexibility, and that'll be a big discussion moving forward.
Okay, and if we want to find out if that monitor is down, saying that we want to get some information for that monitor, if it's down, that we're trying to get a certain place, that we're trying to get air quality, do we have to contact somebody to find out if that monitor is down or is shut off for a certain reason? Because sometimes we get bad air quality at nighttime, and it stinks real bad here in Lamont. But the problem is that we don't know sort of where the place is at, And I'm trying to figure out what could I do for my community to fix up this problem that we have at nighttime, because they open up, I don't know what, but all that stinks. It stinks real bad. It smells like sewer.
And so the monitor should be 24/7, and if they are not reporting, then one of our monitoring team members are going to look into that and get it online as soon as possible. If you see something, you can definitely reach out to us and say, hey, where's this data? It seems to be missing, and that could draw our attention to it, but we would appreciate that if you were the first to tell us. We would get on it right away to make sure that monitor is working for you. Now, if you smelled something or you see something and you're not seeing it depicted on a monitor, that could just be a very localized thing that's just happening that the monitor isn't close enough to detect. And that's where you could call our complaint line and let an inspector know that you're seeing something that you don't think is right, that might be a violation. And an inspector will be able to get out there and take a closer look and work with you anonymously to hopefully figure that problem out.
Okay, and I got one more question. On these monitors, how many miles do they detect problems, with the smell or whatever? How many miles do they reach?
No, that's a good question, and unfortunately a little too technical for me to answer. I need to call upon one of our monitoring specialists to give you a good answer as to the specifications of the equipment and how far they can detect. But pollution travels long distances. Like, we have monitors now in the district picking up on smoke impacts from the Northern California wildfires. So you could say the monitors are, detecting pollution from miles away. So it's hard to pinpoint where exactly the pollution is coming from with a monitor, but whatever's in their vicinity certainly will be able to be detected accurately.
Okay, well, thank you. That's my question.
Great, thank you, Mario. And I see Gus Jr.'s hand up as well. Gus, if you'd like to go next.
Yes, thank you very much. And I appreciate very much, John, and thank you so much for the presentation. Very informative. And I also appreciate Mario, some very insightful questions. Definitely a lot of what he asked, I'll probably piggyback on. And thank you, John, for kind of giving this, like you said, very bird's eye, high level overview, right? Of both like the sources of concern or the potential sources of concern, right? You showed a map that had pinpointed the different areas of where like registered facilities that have like permits that operate, right, are, and then like the different things that, like the different pollutions, right, like ozone and what that is, right, PM and what that is, and what's generated. And also appreciate the map that kind of just softly touched on the Arvin, Lamont, like, potential sources like mobile, both on, off, pesticide, right? Like for sure, pesticide is one that is of concern. And then stationary sources, right? Like you showed, maybe not all, but like in the map that had the pinpoints of the sources. Some of those might be right stationary, some of them might be mobile. So I'm really excited to dig into that, right? Like it seems like that's where we're going, right? To digging into that. And then just really like on the air monitoring piece, based like the RAN, which is the website that you had named that has like real-time air quality data, that when residents look at that, like say when someone, say Mario right now opens up RAN and looks at it, it will give him a whatever is closest to him an average of what kind of the air quality is, right? But I think the important thing that AB 617 could provide is really to give that neighborhood scale, right? That really what in Mario's neighborhood is creating that smell, right? That's not the first time I hear, residents from Arvin and Lamont say like, hey, like clockwork every night is just, there's a funk here, right? And there's a lot of sources, but where is it coming from, right? So I really think this will provide an opportunity for residents to really pinpoint at a neighborhood scale, right? At a very more personalized scale, what the air quality is there. And as of now, what are the different, if any, what are the different air monitors that currently are in either Arvin or Lamont that are being operated? Do we have that information? It's been a while since I looked into that.
Yeah, thanks, Gus. Great points. I'll answer your last question first, and I'll have to reach out to our monitoring team again to find out what monitor is in the Arvin and Lamont community. I know that there is a monitor there, and I can't recall off the top of my head which pollutants it monitors, but I can get that back to you and share that with the community. And great points, Gus. Yeah, this is the community that can absolutely, and the program, the AB 617 program, can absolutely like get these questions answered. What's happening in our community, and how can we set up a monitoring system to find that sort of information out. And I also wanted to mention one thing, Gus, and forgive me if I wasn't clear, the map that I showed wasn't a stationary source map with the facility pin drops. We'll get to that map down the line after we develop the emission inventory for the community. That map was the sources of concern map that you guys had all discussed and put together in your breakout groups, whether it was the last meeting or the meeting before that, I can't remember, but that was that map that was there. The map that you're referring to, that's forthcoming, and we're excited to build that for you as soon as we have inventory. But I'll get back to you on the Arvin Lamont monitor and what pollutants it measures.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then my other question was on the kind of 9,000 to 3,000 kind of ratio on inspections. The 3,000 or the 9,000 number of inspections, those are the ones that you guys did that were like already predetermined, and the other 3,000 were like random or reports or call-ins? Or how does that breakdown work?
Yeah,
So
I'll take that one, John. So when it comes to compliance inspections, we perform unannounced inspections of our stationary sources. And so that 9,000 number deals with those types of sources. So permitted facilities that have permits with conditions that they have to follow. We regularly perform unannounced inspections of those facilities. So that's what the 9,000 represents. The 3,000, as you talked about, Gus, those are, we receive reports and complaints from members of the public, and we go out and investigate those. And, we receive well over 3,000 on an annual basis. And, we're very proud of the fact that we have a system in place that we respond to complaints 24 hours a day, like John talked about, 365 days a year. And so, yeah, I mean, please, I think one of the great things about the AB 617 process is the educational opportunities to talk about these programs and what services are available to all members, and specifically to the Arvin Lamont community. And if you are experiencing those, well, not if you are, but when you're experiencing those issues, those odors and things of that nature, please be sure to contact us, and we will perform investigations of those situations.
Yeah, thank you guys for addressing that.
I got one more question.
Go ahead, Mario, and then after you, I see Carlos next.
Okay. Yeah. Too. I was want to ask them on regulations of black water. What they pour on the fields. The water waste. What they pour in the fields and all that. Are there a regulation on that? Because my understanding is that they could use that wastewater to put out there, but not abusing it, like really using a lot of wastewater, putting in the fields. And that water, when they overfill the fields, that water is going to our underground waters, contaminating our drinking water. There's any way that we could investigate that?
I believe that would be in the jurisdiction of the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'm not sure what your local water jurisdiction is, but if there's any concern about the drinking water being contaminated due to pooling or misuse of some crop additives or liquids, I think they'd be
yeah, I totally understand that, but I'm talking about big companies who pouring their wastewater, but they're cleaning up their product and all that, and they throwing it in the fields and creating black waters and smells and all that. How could we take care of that type of problem?
Yeah, I think this would be a situation, Mario, if there are odors associated with it, please let us know. And similar to what we talked about.
I seen a lot of right here on, what is it, Panama Road, wastewater pouring in those fields. I seen right there in DeGiorgio, in the fields right there, they're pouring water in the fields, wastewater. I'm talking about wastewater. And right there in Mountain View Street, in the fields, they're pouring out wastewater too. And if you pass through there, you could smell, it smells really bad. You can't even drive through there in the afternoon. Okay. I just wonder if we could figure out a way to maybe investigate that part of the property, find out if they are abusing the water. Because all that water is going is really, my understanding is when you pour too much water in the fields, all that water goes in the ground. Then what it does is contaminate our drinking water.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do, Mario, is for us to give you a call and to gather more information and conduct an investigation into it.
I would love that. Now, and I'll wait for your call. Like that, we could get together
Okay.
and try to figure out this type of problem.
Yeah, we'll have someone reach out to you tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mario. Okay, Carlos, I would love to have you go next. I see your hand up still.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I did have a question about something that may have been answered beforehand. Mainly, I wanted to ask, since this is my first meeting, what the control variants are used for knowing when something is out of the ordinary for that area or something along those lines.
I'm sorry, Carlos, could you repeat the question for me?
So what is the control that you guys use to tell when something is like abnormally high or low or something along those lines?
Oh, yeah, no, good question. So we've established these air quality indices. We haven't established them. They're promulgated at a higher level than the air district, but there are air quality indices, level 1, level 2, level 3, and they're arbitrary, but not arbitrary. They're based on concentrations, ambient concentrations of ozone or particulate matter, and baseline healthy ambient levels are level 1, and those are near zero or very low levels of ozone and particulate matter in the air. And then when certain thresholds of parts per billion for ozone or certain thresholds of micrograms per cubic meter for particulate matter are exceeded, that'll get us up to a level 2 air quality index. And there's notifications that go out based on the level of air quality in the community. So that's kind of how we measure or gauge the change from a healthy baseline, is using those air quality indices.
Okay, thank you. That's pretty much the only question I had. I didn't know if it may have been answered beforehand, as I'm subbing for Minerva Contreras, but I was very curious about that.
Thanks for your question, Carlos.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions, or anyone from the Spanish line that may have a question as well?
¿Puedo hacer un comentario?
Sí, por favor. Go ahead, Teresa. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Julian, just one moment. We do have a call or a comment as well on the other line, so we're going to try to do that one and put the other person on hold for just a moment.
Okay, great. Teresa, un momento. Okay.
Go ahead.
¿Y me puede decir su comentario? How can we find the phone to replace the machines and the chimneys?
The phone number to replace the wood burning stoves, I can drop a link in the chat to that program, that incentive program for the wood burning stove replacement incentive.
El número de teléfono que pueden llamar es el 559-230-5800. Okay. El número de teléfono otra vez el 559-230-5800, y esa es la línea de los incentivos y ahí le pueden ayudar. O si no, puede también llamar al 230-6000 y esa es la línea directa a todo el distrito, y también nomás les puede decir que quiere intercambiar su chimenea o su cortacésped. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, and then let's see. We had Teresa. I think you're next. Si quieres hablar, Teresa.
Ok, buenas tardes a todos y gracias por el trabajo que están haciendo.
Gracias.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Van a traducir. Bueno, no sabía cómo era la velocidad de hablar. El otro día me tocó ir a Lamont, yo vivo en Arvin, porque se inauguró una cancha de, digamos, de béisbol y se pusieron unas luces, todo muy increíble. Y hubo una ceremonia un día viernes en la noche y todo muy bonito, muy, muy lindo. El clima, la velada, todo estaba increíble. Las personas comiendo después de la ceremonia, muy lindo en el parque, pero como dice el señor que recién hizo todas esas preguntas, un olor increíblemente fuerte. Entonces, como que, claro, no, era un olor increíble y yo incluso comenté con alguien por qué huele así y me dijeron, no se sabe. Y es increíble lo que ellos dicen, es verdad, yo quería decir ese comentario. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Teresa.
Yeah, I would like to say that I went to Lamont. I live in Arvin, and I saw that they inaugurate a baseball court and they put lights and they had a ceremony. It was a Friday night and everything was beautiful. The weather was perfect. People were eating and everything in the park was beautiful. But the only thing that I would like to comment is just to continue on the comment that we just heard, that the smell that we could feel when we were there, it was very, very bad. It was awful. And that's the comment that I had.
Okay, thank you for the comment. As Ryan said, please let us know if you smell anything off-putting, and we'll investigate and let you know what we find. If there's any violations, we'll take appropriate action.
Thank you, John. So any final questions? We have a couple of minutes before we need to move on, and if not, we will continue on. Any other last questions or comments? I see Emma de la Rosa. Emma.
Hello. I just wanted to make sure that if Mario is asking to include those locations as sources of pollution, that we do include them in the inventory. I understand he mentioned some concerns about the water quality, but he did also share about the smells, and I think that's obviously within the jurisdiction of this program. So if we can include it, if that was Mario's request, then I think we should include them and as part of the sources of pollution. And then on another note, I wanted to quickly add that my colleague Blanca is here to be my alternate. She's not my, actually, oops, sorry, who can I message about this alternate situation so that I can just do it via chat?
Let's see, maybe Zong might be a good person to mention because she's going to be helping us with voting later.
Yeah, okay, I'll message you on chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Excellent. And I see an 814 number if you'd like to go next. And also right after this, we need to make sure there are a few Zoom names such as this number that we're not sure who you are. So we want to make sure we catch your name before we move into voting. So I see the 814 number 590-5528 if you'd like to go next. Unless that was an accident, I'm not sure. Okay, so I think it might be an accident, or if they're having trouble unmuting as another possibility, but.
Hello, you hear me now?
Yes.
You hear me now? This is Laura Rosenberg or Hyder. Right now, I want to know where does Mario want me to put that air monitor? Because I do have a temp top air monitor, portable, one that can move that measures VOC and formaldehyde, but I have to actually purchase a hydrogen sulfide monitor. I think if that's what he's talking about, because fumes are more like hydrogen sulfide, and my VOC monitor can detect that to some degree, but not that well. It's more like just tracing where it's coming from, just wander around the neighborhood and look at the wind direction. I also have PM 2.5 monitor, which you might be able to put. I don't know where he wants me to put it. All right, thanks.
If you want to put it, it's right there on Panama Road, and I think it's close to where Greenway is. I don't know what's in that little street. It's maybe like a mile and a half away from Lamont towards the west. Oh, if you want to call me, I'll show you where you could put it at, like that you can get an idea, because that's a good spot to put it there. And two, we got another spot where they're throwing their waste dirt right there next to Lamont, right there on Panama Road. It's a big mountain, a mile long mountain, all dirt waste. But if you move that dirt, it stinks. You could put it right there too.
Great. So how about as a follow-up, we'll make sure the Air District helps connect the two of you to follow up on this and be able to help out with that.
Yeah,
What's your phone number?
We appreciate Laura, volunteering to provide assistance. I think that maybe
I'm
some
willing
general
to-
concerns. Laura is a member of the public. If she chooses to spend her time there. However, I do have concerns. What Laura's proposing to do would be outside of the AB 617 process. It's not, Laura, we thank Laura's continued participation in attendance in these meetings and volunteering. But I just would like to point out that the services she's providing is outside of AB 617 and this community steering process.
Great. Thank you, Ryan.
But it would help out to figure out where the smell is coming from.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point, what we need to figure out where the smell is coming from and fix up this problem. That's what the citizens here in Lamont would love to do.
No, and you're absolutely right, Mario. And we want to work with the committee to do exactly what you're talking about, and establishing a community air monitoring network and plan with all the community steering committee members and identifying the locations where this is where it's needed and will be most beneficial, and the types of pollutants that we're going to look to monitor and to check. So that is absolutely part of this process.
Yeah, my part is better off to try to do it as soon as possible, because when winter comes, the smells start going down because the heat do not bring that smell up. And we have to do it as soon as possible to find the source, because winter comes, it'll be kind of hard to find the smell.
Yeah, and we're going to follow up with you tomorrow, Mario, and start that process.
And if offline, Laura, if you'd like to share your contact info with Mario, and you can kind of separately connect as well, that's possibility as well. So thank you both. So we do need to move on, but I see one hand up, Gustavo. So I want to make sure we address that very quickly before we move into the next agenda item. Thank you.
Just to mention that I think one of the orders, not the sources of the orders that were mentioned, is the dairies, the cows that are on Fairfax, especially on the afternoon, evenings, nights. I think the cows move more around that time, and that odor is very strong. I'm in the community of Lamont on a regular basis, and that's one of the sources of the bad odor that was mentioned, especially Teresa that mentioned that happening in the park. That's one of the sources of bad odors and pollution.
Great. So we'll want to make sure that that's on the map if it's not yet already for sources of concern. Thank you for that, Gustavo. So we'll make sure to check on that. Excellent. Okay, thank you. So I wanted to make sure that Hannah had a chance to just share. There's a few more people maybe that we still don't know if they're a CSC member or a member of the public. Hannah, did you want to chime in and just say who we're missing?
Yes, thank you, Julia. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
So we have the phone number that starts at, we want to double check that we got everyone who is attending this meeting and you're all renamed properly. So we have a phone number that starts with 661 and ends with 3775. The last four digits 3775. If you can unmute your phone and let us know who you are, and you can press *6 on your phone. The phone number ends in 3775 Can you please press *6, unmute yourself, and let us know who you are?
Okay, so if we don't hear from that person, we'll move on. Thank you for trying. And if that person's able to chime in at some point, feel free to, so we can rename you on the Zoom.
And we have a couple more, Juliet.
Okay.
Jose's iPhone. Hi, Jose. I saw you earlier, your picture. You're driving in the car. We just want to make sure we catch your last name. Jose's iPhone, and Jose, I think you are driving. You are not driving, but you are in the car. Can you please unmute yourself and let us know your last name?
Jose Ojeda, Gus says.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. That's what we thought. And there's very last participants. We just have iPhone. We just have iPhone in the participant list. We did not know what's the first name or last name. And clicking ask to unmute. So the person who is just participating on his or her iPhone, you should see unmute message popping up. Can you unmute yourself and let us know who you are? Person who is participating on his or her iPhone. Okay, I hear no.
Okay. If anyone chimes in later, do let us know, or via chat as well. Thank you. So we can make sure to know that you're a CSC member or a member of the public, etc. Okay, so we do need to move on to the next agenda item. Maria, do you have a quick question so that we can keep moving, but do you want to go ahead and?
Hello, mi
Hi.
nombre es María.
Hola.
María Dolores Martínez. Buenas tardes a todos. Yo quería decir que sí, estoy muy agradecida con todo el trabajo que están haciendo y ojalá que sí sea algo que en el futuro lo podamos ver mejorado. Soy una persona que trabajo en el campo y pues lamentablemente, aunque es muy incómodo para mí tener la mascarilla todo el día, es por el humo que hay de los lumbres que están alrededor de nosotros y es realmente algo completamente que afecta a la salud porque es muy incómodo, duele la cabeza por el humo. Esperamos que todo esto que están tratando de hacer para el aire y todo esto sea algo que sí, en el futuro lo podamos ver y podamos tener una mejor salud ambiental, porque estamos en una época completamente muy mala. Yo vivo aquí por muchos años en Bakersfield, aquí en el Fuller Acre Waters, aquí cerquitas de la refinería, y antes, más para atrás, no era tan duro el aire, tan malo, porque no corrían tanto tráfico por esta carretera del Wipesh, pero ahora es completamente difícil. Cuando voy a Lamont, tengo que esperar un buen rato ahí para poderme entrar para ir a Lamont, que es una cosa chiquita y es mucho el tráiler que pasa. Yo sí estoy muy de acuerdo que se haga ese trabajo y les agradezco mucho que estén trabajando en eso. Es mi comentario.
Gracias, María. Gracias.
Yes, my name is Maria Dolores Martinez, and I am very thankful for all the work that you are doing. And hopefully we can see this in the future. We can see all the things that you're doing are going to get better in the future. I work in the fields, and unfortunately, we have to use the mask all day, even though it's uncomfortable because of the smoke that we have around for the fires. So you can get headaches and your health can be affected by the smoke. So we do have to use the mask. And I wanted to say that I hope that this air will get better in the future, and then we maybe have better environment for ourselves. And then I wanted to say that I live here in Bakersfield, close to the refinery. And before, the air quality wasn't that bad. Before, we didn't have that much traffic, but now we see on these streets a lot of traffic, a lot of trailers and trucks coming by. And every time I have to go to Lamont, it takes me a long time to get there because of the traffic from all the trucks. So I am very thankful again. I wanted to thank all of you for all the work that you're doing. And thank you very much.
Great. Gracias, Maria Dolores. Excellent. John or Ryan, would you like to chime in as well? Okay, great. Well, thank you. So we will move on, and the next agenda item is focused on approving or voting on the Community Steering Committee charter. So I'm going to give it over to Ryan to kind of give a little bit of background on this vote and on the charter and how it was developed and where it's at now, and the stage we're in for approval of this of the document. So Ryan, I'll let you chime in then, and I'll go through specifics around the logistics of voting after that.
Yeah, great, thanks. So the AB 617 process is definitely about learning lessons and how to look to do things better. And so what we learned from prior experiences was definitely when looking to take votes to make sure that it's happening within the timeframes of the meeting. And so we had a really great conversation. So kind of going back in time, back on June 28th, we sent out the initial draft of the Arvin Lamont Community Steering Committee charter. We received a lot of great feedback and incorporated that, and we provided everyone a new draft on July 29th. Sent that out to all the members, and then during the last Community Steering Committee meeting on August 5th, we had a good discussion. We went through all the changes that had been made to the document. The presentation was posted. Hopefully anybody that did not have an opportunity to attend the meeting either got an opportunity to watch it later on, or were able to look at the updates based on the feedback that we received. And so during that August 5th meeting, we had heard from the members in attendance that they were supportive of the changes. And so at this time we were looking to take a vote of the steering committee on approving the draft charter, and then using that as the guidance for the community steering committee meetings moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. So yeah, so we'll jump into the vote, and we want to make sure if there are any questions on the process, kind of that we've led up until now. I will go into kind of just the protocols around voting to approve or not approve the charter, but any general questions before we jump into the vote? Gus Jr., yeah.
Yeah, thank you again. And I just want to make like a clarifying question. So currently what is going to happen is we're going to break out into breakouts, and we're going to do a vote on whether or not we approve of the charter, right?
Yeah, and I'll go through the logistics of that in a second. But yeah, we're going to basically vote on whether or not you approve, yes, approve the vote, or vote or the charter, or no, you do not approve the charter. And so that will be our vote, is a yes, no vote to approve the charter or not.
And so if any questions, probably this would be the best time. Otherwise, from here on out, then like we'll be operating under this set charter.
Yeah, exactly. So if there are any final questions, all the feedback and everything that's been shared to date is incorporated in the charter as it stands. But if there are any kind of last clarifying questions, feel free to ask them. But at this point, it's just approving the charter that everyone's already seen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen very quickly here, and jump ahead to our voting protocol. So just as a reminder, you've seen this before. So government representatives on the CSC are not eligible to vote. Alternates are only eligible to vote if their primary member is not present. And we'll know who's eligible to vote with a V, as well as we have a roster of who is able to vote versus not, who's on the CSC. And basically our goal is to approve something as of now. Using the charter language is basically a majority vote. So 50% plus one of all eligible voting members that are present. And so that's kind of basically how the voting works to approve any sort of decision, such as approving the charter. And so what we're going to do today is play around with a new format, basically where, because it takes so long with such a large group to go through name by name, what we want to do is break out into a few smaller groups. And so we'll each have a shorter list to get through and be able to do that at the same time. So we're going to break out, I think, into 4 groups, including, I think, 1 or 2 Spanish speaking groups and a few English speaking groups. And our goal will be to basically get through that the long list of the voting roster a little bit faster and record those votes, and then come back together and see the final tally all together. So that's the goal there. So we're trying this out as a new way of trying to get through a vote a little bit faster. So if there's any quick questions or clarifications on this process, feel free to raise your hand now and share. If there's anyone from the Air District team that wants to chime in as well, feel free to. Otherwise, we'll break out into groups in just a minute. Any final questions? Okay, so we'll break out into small groups and then we'll see you back in this large group as soon as we finish voting. So we'll see you all soon.
Hello, this is Zong with the Valley Air District. If there's anyone in the main room that is a member of the CSC and needs to be put into a breakout room, please unmute yourself and let me know.
This is Gus. I just got a quick question. Will the vote be aggregate, or will we just say like pass or no pass? Or will we showcase the aggregate votes?
Yeah. So I'll share my screen in just a minute. And so we'll see everyone's vote, whether it was yes or no, and then we'll see the total. And that will tell us, if it passed or not. So if 50% or more said approved it, then it would pass. So yeah, so I'll show that to you in 1 minute.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you, Gus. And is everyone back in the main room? Are we waiting on any groups?
We are not back yet.
No, there's 3 pages.
There's definitely, yeah. We got, yeah.
Okay, so we'll wait on those groups.
But given the amount of time our vote took last time, we're doing great.
It was very fast for us.
Yes.
And Joanna, who was in my group, I just wanted to make sure that there was no one else on your line, because I know that your name said Joanna and family. I want to make sure there's no other voting members that I may have missed. So I just want to double check with you on that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just my family. It's Victoria Becerril and Enrique Manuel and Victor Becerril.
And are they all separate voting members?
I'm sorry?
Are they separate vote? Are they also voting members or just there with you?
Oh, they're just here with me.
Okay, great. So they're not like a separate vote. Okay. So you're the only one that votes. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent.
Papi, how I muted? Mm-hmm.
Joanna, one more time. Sorry if you're still there. Heather, just let me know that your relatives, your family there actually are voting members as well, if they want to come on the line and just share their vote, and I can make a record of their vote as well. So let me know if that's something that they'd like to do, is share their vote.
Let's see the family. I vote yes.
Okay, can you share your name one more time?
Victoria Becerril, and I vote yes.
Okay, great. Let me record that really quick. Thank you. Excellent. Thanks. And then was there anyone else there too?
Yes, but I'm sorry. They're here, but they're sick. They have the COVID.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No need to bother them. Let them rest. And
okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you,
muted,
Papi.
Ma. There you go.
Thank you, Papi. Hello?
Hello. Hi. We can hear you.
Oh, it's not mute then.
There we go. We cannot hear you now. Thank you. And I see here, let's see, I see Jesus's note that Lucia is logged in under the wrong name, so it should be Lucia instead of Lorena. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, is Lucia here in the main room or still? She is, right. Lucia, do you want to just confirm that we got your name wrong and we'll update it here? That you're, it's not Lorena Contreras, it's Lucia Alcala. Is that correct, Lucia? If you can hear me, Lucia, just, I want to make sure to update your name if that is correct. Okay, well, I'll just wait for Lucia to confirm and I'll make a little note here to her.
Yo soy Lorena Contreras, pero no, yo nunca me he puesto Lucía. No sé si tienen un problema ahí con ustedes.
I am Lorena Contreras, but I never name myself as Lucia. I don't know if you have a problem there.
Oh no, I think Jesus was just thought that there was confusion there, but it sounds like there's not. It actually is Lorena. So, estamos bien, Lorena, no importa. Yeah, fue un confundido.
Okay.
Yeah, gracias.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you.
Gracias.
My name is Sal Partida with CVA.
Hola, bienvenido.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
We can hear you, yes. Are you just joining?
I think so, since he hasn't been renamed, and so we do need to collect his vote.
Okay, great. And is it Saul? What's the first name?
Sal.
Oh, is it Salvador?
Salvador.
Okay, perfecto.
Partida, sí.
Okay, so welcome. And we are just in the process of finishing voting on the CSC charter. And if you did have a chance to review that, and if you approve or don't approve it, if you're welcome to let us know your vote and we can add it.
Where do I see the agenda?
The agenda is not up right now, although I can go ahead and start sharing my screen because I think we should get everyone back very soon. So let me just share my screen here.
Sorry about that.
No problem. So right now what we did was broke out into smaller groups to go faster through the vote. And so we're just finishing that up. And if right now we're doing a yes or no, whether or not you approve the CSC charter that you received.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Yeah, so we're doing a vote, either yes or no vote to approve the CSC charter that everyone received and incorporated all of the changes that people made.
Okay, this is throughout the meetings?
Yeah, so the charter is the document that kind of governs the CSC. So if you had a chance to review it and want to approve it or not approve it, this is the chance to do that. And if you want to not vote either, you're also welcome to excuse yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to say no because I haven't seen it.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, thank you.
Robert, thank you for having your camera on.
Okay, do we have everyone back in the main room?
Yeah, almost.
Yes,
almost. Okay, great.
We should be good.
We're good? Everyone's back? Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that was a smooth process. The goal here was to go faster through the roster of the very long list of folks that we have on the CSC. And so right now I have pulled up is the screen that shares all of the votes that you gave. So hopefully in your small groups, you already verified that your vote was entered correctly. But I will slowly scroll through this and then we'll just see the tally and see if the charter was approved by your vote. So go ahead and take a look one more time and make sure your vote was recorded and that it was recorded accurately.
Hey, Julia, can you zoom in on the
Yes.
screen a little bit?
Yeah, here, let me, hold on one second there. Why is it not letting me?
Can you do control and then the roller?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying and it's not working, but let me just try this here.
I think it also has like the 100%. Is
that better or even bigger?
No, it's bigger.
But would you like even bigger or is that good?
Maybe one more, like 150 maybe.
There you go.
That's good. Perfect.
Okay, great. So yeah, feel free to just take a look, make sure your vote was recorded correctly. I'll scroll down in 1 second. Okay.
And folks, this voting charter is organized by first name in alphabetical order by first name.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't see my recorded.
Okay, let's see, wait, who is that just said that?
That was Sal. You got to get to the S.
Oh, well, Salvador, we didn't record Salvador's vote. He decided to, right, you decided to not vote for this, so we didn't record your vote. Yeah.
This is Jose Gonzalez. I'd like to include my vote as a yes.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, Jose. Oh, your vote is, I did record your vote, Jose. I don't know what happened, but thank you so much for catching that.
Thank you.
I'm seeing that you might still be in the cell, Hannah, and that might be why.
Because what?
There's a chance you're in the cell. I'll just overwrite it and see if that works. Okay, I just overwrote it.
Maybe refresh. Yeah, because it was one of the last votes.
That could be maybe. Yeah, I didn't refresh maybe. So, okay, thank you for catching that, Jose. Excellent.
Thanks, Jose.
Okay, I'm going to keep scrolling.
Thank you.
Take a look and make sure your vote was recorded. Okay, so that is everyone. And if there's anyone whose vote was not recorded, I see.
Mine is not recorded. Salvador Espartida.
Well, yeah, would you like to vote?
I like to record is no, like I said, because I haven't seen it. But how do I record it?
Oh, I can do it for you. So this would be a vote of, yeah, whether or not you do or don't approve the charter. So you would say you don't approve it because you haven't seen it. Okay. We do want to also make sure that everyone is getting all of the emails, getting access to everything that's being sent to you. So do let us know if for some reason you were not sent the CSE charter, because we do want to make sure there's no issues there with your email address. So anyway, okay, so I think we are done. So I'm going to go ahead. And I do see a hand up from somebody in the public, and we're gonna have to wait until the end of the meeting if you are a member of the public to hear from you. So I just want to, but I do see your hand, so thank you, and we'll make sure to get to you at the end of the meeting. So thank you, Wendy. Okay, so here's the votes. We've got 35 yes and 1 no.
Yes, I'm sorry. We have somebody in the chat. It says that Odon Chavez wasn't called.
Okay, Odon. Okay, great. So he still needs to vote.
And also Teresa Luque.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so if we can record your votes really quickly. Odon, do you vote yes or no?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay, that's Odon. Okay.
Ofelia Oliveros.
Say that one more time.
Ofelia Oliveros is a no.
Ofelia Riveros.
Oliveros.
Oliveros. Okay. Ofelia, is that you, Ofelia?
Oh, enseña la cara. Ophelia is here with me.
And that's a no?
It's a no.
Okay, great. Ofelia, thank you. And then who was the other person? There was also...
Under Maria Teresa Luque.
Great, okay. Maria Teresa Luca. Wait, let's see. Here we go. I see a yes vote. Is that correct, Maria Teresa?
Yeah. Okay. No vi mi nombre, disculpe.
Ah, yeah, no, está bien.
I didn't say my name. I didn't see my name. I'm sorry.
Perfecto, gracias. Excellent. Okay, so I think we've got everyone here. And so the final tally is 36 said yes and 2 said no. And I see here that a note from Michelle about the idea of an abstain vote, which is actually a great idea as well, is having a column for abstaining from a vote. So it's something we should definitely consider as well. Okay, excellent. So we will move on. So we've approved the CSC charter. Congratulations. You now have a document to guide your working group, your committee as you go forward. And of course, as questions come up and, really making sure we understand the rules, we want to be referencing the charter as we go along and make sure that that really is our source of truth around how we govern ourselves. And so again, it's something that we want to make sure we're understanding and using to really guide this group around the process. So I will stop sharing there. Are there any questions around this before we move on to the next presentation? Or anything that Brian from their district would like to add?
Well, just thank you everybody for taking the time and providing your input into the development of the community steering committee charter. And I definitely, in reviewing all the charters, I definitely have a deep appreciation, and it reflects the views and the desires of the committee. So thank you so much for your time and input onto it.
Yeah, thank you all. So we can go ahead and move on to the next presentation. Ryan, if you would like to welcome our next speaker.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to, got put on the spot there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Dr. Heather Boldstad.
Yes.
Excellent.
I'm sorry, the voting is already over with?
Oh, yes, Salvador. Yes, so we've just finished voting. Sorry you came in late in the middle of the process.
I'm sorry about that. Could I switch my vote?
Yes, you can.
Okay, let's put my vote yes, and Ophelia as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Salvador. Thank you. I'll change that. All right, welcome, Heather. Let's see.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Great. Okay, well, good evening. Thank you for inviting me to be with you today. So as Ryan and Julia said, my name is Heather Bolstad. I'm a toxicologist with the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which is a part of the California Environmental Protection Agency. And tonight I'm going to provide a little bit of background on how we conduct risk assessments for air contaminants. And just a little background on the California EPA. It has 6 departments. You've probably heard of the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. There's also CalRecycle, Department of Pesticide Regulation, Department of Toxic Substances Control, my department, the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which is also known as OEHA, our acronym, and also the State Water Resources Control Board. And I put the mission of Cal EPA and OEHA here, if you'd like to read those. Today, I'd like to cover what exactly we mean by toxicity, exposure, and risk, and how OEHA determines toxicity, and some of the factors we have to consider that influence toxicity. And then I'll briefly get into some specific air pollutants and their health concerns that John nicely introduced, and then discuss a little bit about what studies have shown happens in terms of health when air quality is improved. So first off, risk is a function of toxicity and exposure. So both toxicity and exposure contribute to risk. And toxicity describes the health effects associated with a compound and how much of a compound causes a health effect. And toxicity can be represented by health guidance values. So an example would be a compound that makes asthma worse. So that would be its health effect. And then at what concentration it does that is kind of shown in this figure here, whereas the concentration of a compound in air increases, inhaler usage increases as well. And so how does OEHA determine the toxicity of compounds? Sorry, let me move this. So we develop benchmarks for toxicity called health guidance values, and we have two main types. So the first are non-cancer health guidance values, and our values are called reference exposure levels, or RELs. And a REL is the amount of chemical in the air that is not likely to cause non-cancer health effects, like asthma, even in sensitive populations like children and pregnant women. And if we take the figure from the previous slide, the reference exposure level might lie between this concentration and this middle concentration, because at this concentration, health effects are not likely below it, but are more likely above it. And for cancer, we develop values called unit risks or cancer potency factors. And these describe how cancer risk increases as exposure increases. This is shown in this graph here, where as dose increases along the horizontal axis, cancer risk increases along the vertical axis. And for cancer, we assume that every exposure other than 0 has some risk. And the cancer potency is essentially how steep this line is. So if you have a pretty flat line, as you increase dose more and more, the cancer risk doesn't increase much, then you have a less potent carcinogen. If the curve is very steep, so just a little bit of exposure results in a high cancer risk, you have a more potent carcinogen. So some of the factors that influence toxicity include the amount that one is exposed to, as well as the length of exposure or the time. Is it hours, days, or years? And then sensitivity. We are all at different life stages in the population, and we have different conditions and diets and genetics. So these all influence sensitivity to chemical compounds. In terms of amount being important, the health effects can become more serious as the amount someone is exposed to increases. So this is shown with the example of alcohol. So as the dose of alcohol increases, the effects go from no effect at low levels to sleep and unconsciousness and eventually death. So you can see that as the exposure increased, the seriousness of the effect also increased. In terms of time, OEHA addresses the importance of time by developing reference exposure levels for specific periods of time. So we develop acute RELs for brief exposure, specifically occasional 1-hour exposures. For moderate exposure, we develop 8-hour RELs, and those are for repeated 8-hour exposures over a significant fraction of a lifetime. And this might be relevant, for example, for students at a school or workers at their work site. And then we also develop chronic RELs, and that's to protect against constant exposure to a compound or continuous exposures from 1 year to a lifetime. An example of this may be exposure to diesel exhaust. So an acute exposure may be mowing the lawn with a diesel-powered mower for 1 hour, whereas chronic exposure could be living next to a freeway where there are many diesel-powered vehicles. In terms of exposure, exposure describes how a compound contacts or enters the body and how much. And for air pollution, the how much part can be represented by air monitoring data. So there are 3 main ways that compounds can contact or enter the body, and we call them routes of exposure. So the first is oral or ingestion through the mouth. And this can be food, water, dust, etc. Second would be inhalation. So bringing air in that contains a compound into the lungs. And then dermal or skin contact. And how much contacts or enters the body can be an air concentration, but depending on what you're interested in, it can be a water concentration or a concentration of food or a consumer product, that sort of thing. And then this just shows some potential sources of exposure to air pollutants. You have oil and gas industry, agriculture, mobile sources on freeways and surface streets, dairy industry, and diesel powered vehicles and equipment specifically. So in terms of risk describes the potential for health effects, and it's represented by two different kinds of values. The value for non-cancer effects is called a hazard quotient. And for cancer risk, we describe cancer risk as cancer risk per million individuals. So the hazard quotient for non-cancer effects is kind of shown schematically in this figure. And essentially, the hazard quotient compares the exposure to the health guidance value. So if the exposure is less than the health guidance value, the hazard quotient is less than 1, and there's little concern for health risks. If the exposure is equal to the health guidance value, then the hazard quotient is 1, and there's also very little concern for health risks. However, if the exposure is greater than the health guidance value, the hazard quotient is over 1, and there's increased concern for health risks. And another way to simply illustrate this is for non-cancer effects to compare the amount in the air to the reference exposure level. So this orange line represents the reference exposure level. If the concentration is higher, there may be some concern for health effects, but if it's lower, there's much less concern. For cancer, our comparison is to the risk target, and this is what's considered insignificant cancer risk. And depending on the agency or the entity, it might be something like 1 in a million risk that's considered insignificant. And so if the determined risk is higher than this level, there is some concern. Whereas if it's lower, there's much less concern. So these values guide our risk assessment. And then one last thing to keep in mind regarding risk is that we're all exposed to multiple compounds at any one time. So we have to take that into account. And so we determine cumulative risk by adding up the risk from each individual compound. So this is termed cumulative risk, and it represents the total risk. So some specific air pollutants and their health concerns. John covered this figure. So I'll go straight into the health effects. So as he mentioned, the size of the particle is important because it determines how deep into the respiratory tract it goes. So particles greater than 10 microns in diameter will usually hit inside the nasal cavity and stop there. Those that are between 2.5 and 10 will go a little deeper to the upper respiratory tract. And then PM 2.5 is more dangerous because it reaches even deeper, and the smallest particles can even enter the bloodstream. And PM 2.5 has been associated with a number of health effects. Most of them are on the respiratory system, but the cardiovascular system is also impacted. And so short-term exposure is associated with things like respiratory irritation and asthma attacks, whereas short and long-term exposure have been associated with more severe impacts like premature death, particularly from cardiovascular disease or respiratory disease. And more evidence is coming out showing an association between PM 2.5 and neurological outcomes like neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's and mental health problems. In addition to people with cardiovascular or respiratory conditions, other sensitive populations are the elderly, infants and children, and pregnant women. One type of PM 2.5 is diesel exhaust. So the diesel exhaust particulate, some of it is PM 2.5, so 2.5 microns or smaller. And so it has similar health effects to PM 2.5 in general, with effects on the respiratory system and the cardiovascular system. And the sensitive populations are also similar, those with respiratory and cardiovascular conditions, the children and elderly. Diesel exhaust is of greater concern than PM 2.5 in general due to its carcinogenicity. So it's highly carcinogenic or cancer causing. And it's estimated that about 70% of the average Californian's cancer risk from air pollution is due to diesel exhaust. But diesel exhaust levels in California have declined rapidly over the last several decades due to emission control technologies and other regulations. I've provided the health guidance values that we use here. I don't want to get into too much detail, but essentially these would be the values that you'd compare the concentration in air to. The chronic REL is based on changes that were seen in rats that were exposed to diesel exhaust, specifically changes in their lung. And then the cancer value is based on lung tumors observed in workers that were highly exposed to diesel exhaust in their occupation. Wood smoke is another type of PM2.5 or another source, and it contains thousands of chemicals, but the most concerning are the particles, as well as carbon monoxide, irritants like formaldehyde. And these irritants may play a role in smoke-triggered asthma attacks. And then there are also carcinogens, such as polyaromatic hydrocarbons or PAHs. And studies have shown that this wood smoke outside, specifically the PAHs in wood smoke, can infiltrate indoors and impact indoor air quality. An air district program that requires reductions in residential wood burning when the air quality is forecasted to be poor has resulted in decreased hospitalization for cardiovascular disease. And this was shown by a CARB study by Yap and Garcia in 2015. And similar to that, there are a number of other studies that show that reduced PM levels improves health. So another study out of California found that when 8 coal and oil power plants were retired, there was a decreased risk of early birth and fertility rates were increased. In Utah Valley, the shutdown of a steel mill reduced PM10 levels and also reduced respiratory hospital admissions. In Ireland, a ban on coal sales reduced PM and also reduced death from lung disease. In Southern California, children who moved to less polluted areas had improvements in the growth of their lung function, whereas those who moved to more polluted areas had decreased growth in their lung function. And then a study of 51 metropolitan areas in the US found that decreasing PM increased life expectancy. And then finally, any reduction in diesel PM is assumed to result in decreased cancer risk. And then the last couple slides provide examples of some compounds that might be found in air, such as metals or volatile organic compounds, and some of the organs that they target. So on the left in the red are tumor types, and then on the right are some target organs where there can be non-cancer effects, such as the liver. So these are just some examples. And with that, I'm happy to open up for questions.
Great, thank you, Heather. Excellent. And so, yeah, so based on what Heather shared, any kind of clarifying questions, anything else that you'd like to know about and pick Heather's brain since she's here with us today? Okay, sounds like no burning questions as of now. Ryan, would you like to chime in at all and share anything to follow up and kind of put the two presentations, but everything we learned today into context for the bigger kind of process for the CSC? Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it.
No, just thank you so much to Dr. Bolstad for the wonderful presentation. And you know, it's one thing to you know, experience the air pollution, and it's important to see the data and the information behind and the studies that have been done and the health effects and health outcomes associated with air pollution. And as we work with the community steering committee, we're going to talk a lot, and we're going to talk about the different types of pollutants. And so, you know, having Dr. Bolstad share what those pollutants, you know, what the health outcomes from exposure to these pollutants, and importance of really of this program, which is finding ways to reduce the air pollution and reducing the exposure to that pollution is really key to the success of this program. And just look forward to working with all of you on coming up with strategies to address the air pollution burden in the Arvin Lamont community. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Ryan. Excellent. I see Gus Jr. If you'd like to share as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heather, for that presentation. And I think it's very informative, particularly the juncture that we're currently in as a CSC, where we're learning about the different sources of pollution, the different pollution categories, right? The different elements of PM 2.5, and now seeing this, I think one thing is very clear, right? The pollution has a potential to be deadly, right? Definitely at chronic levels, right? At long-term exposure, right? And we know, I mean, you might not know, but folks in South Kern are very familiar with deadly toxins, right? Several years ago, there was two brothers, very young brothers, who died of asphyxiation to H2S cleaning a manhole in one of the composting facilities here in South Kern, right? Since then, the operators have changed. A lot has changed in that operation, but it goes to show that this pollution is nothing to take lightly, right? And we often hear of the effects to the environment and a lot less of the effects to public health, to one's health, right? Like you said, in one of the examples, a school being across the street from a toxic waste, right, or a toxic polluter, right? That those children there, and it's been studied many times, their life expectancy is much less than someone who lives, say in the coast where there is less sources of pollution, right? And there's better wind or better weather, right? Where their topography assists them, right? Rather than holds them back. And it's very much known that, like, if you look at asthma rates in the San Joaquin Valley, there's a lot of children that suffer from chronic early on childhood respiratory illnesses, right? So I think this is a very critical junction, right, where we're taking this information, this knowledge, consuming this, right, and then the next step is then how do we apply this in real life in the community of Arvin, of Weed Patch, of Hilltop, of Lamont and Arvin, right? So thank you, I appreciate this very much, and I hope that this is a continuum, right? Like, this is not just a one-time thing where we talk about, air pollution and air concerns, exposure. When we start talking about mitigation efforts and the emissions inventory, I really hope that this is integral in that conversation, right? That we're talking not only just of pollution, but the potential, sensitive receptors that are around them, right? Whether it be schools, houses of worship, neighborhoods, whatever they might be. So thank you so much for that. And I hope this is something that we continue to talk about throughout the entire process.
Thank you, Gus. Excellent. Great. Any last words, Heather, before we move on?
No, but thank you. And I'd love to continue to be involved.
Excellent. Thank you. Great. Perfect. Well, thank you all for this background. I think it is very integral to this process to really make sure we all understand more about this as we head forward. There we go. And so it is exactly 6:50, so perfectly on time for going into next steps. And so Ryan, if you'd like to share, whoops, there we go. Ryan, if you'd like to share kind of anything around next steps in preparation for our next meeting and anything in between, feel free to.
Yeah, no, so we're excited to work with all of you on the next upcoming agenda. And one of the things that is included in the Community Steering Committee charter is the topic of co-hosts. And so if there are people that are interested in, being a co-host, and, by all means, please let us know. And, it's definitely one of those, what we've done historically with or what the co-hosts have historically done in others is, and it's one of the important aspects of this is, sharing lived experiences in the community. And this is really open to anybody that is a member of the community steering committee. And so we definitely look to bring all the voices from the steering committee and to make that option available. And if anybody's interested, please let us know.
Great.
And we will be working with our co-leads on the upcoming agenda and materials. And I think the education portion is going to be ongoing, and but the crux of what we're doing here, kind of really talking about how we can work together to identify strategies and solutions. That's what's going to be coming up in these next meetings, and that's what I'm excited to work with. And the air district team and the CARB team and everybody else here is excited to work with all the community steering committee members on.
Great, thank you. I do want to make sure if Marta Lopez, if you were trying to say something, I thought you were accidentally unmuting, but let us know if you were trying to say something, Marta Lopez.
Lopez. Teresa.
No, soy Marta López. Disculpe, no, solamente agradecer por todo esto que me motiva tanto a continuar en este programa del Comité para un Arvin Mejor y en este del 617. Yo estoy impactada con todo lo que desde que conozco pues está logrando. Muchas gracias.
Excelente, gracias, Marta.
Yes, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. I just wanted to thank everyone and tell you that this keeps me motivated to continue in this program in the Arvin community, and also the 617. It has really impacted me. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And we appreciate hearing a little bit of insight about, the impact of this on your life and getting to be involved in this. So I appreciate everyone that has shared today and chimed in, throughout the meeting to just share a little bit about kind of how this impacts you personally. So thank you for that. It's the reason we're all here. So excellent. So in terms of next steps, Ryan covered it. So our next CSC meeting is September 22nd. And do now is if there are any, first ask if there's any final questions or thoughts that the CSC members would like to share before we move into public comments. Okay, excellent. So I'll share my screen and make sure that we get the chance to hear from anyone from the public. I know that there was a hand up earlier today, I think from Wendy. But yeah, so this is a great time to just share any thoughts from the public or any questions. Again, there's a chance to share through social media comments or also here on Zoom. So I'll wait and find out from the Air District team if anyone has submitted a comment in any of the platforms.
My name is Wendy Cerecer. I just raised my hand because I was gonna give my vote, but I don't know if I didn't see my vote on my name on the list.
Okay. Well, Wendy, I wonder if you were accidentally misnamed here because I see a P in front of your name, which made me think you were a member of the public. But if you are, let me just check here. But you may actually, that may have been a mistake as well. So
Wendy, what is your last name, please?
Cerecer.
Okay, I'm gonna look into Air District to confirm the participant list and the roster.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Wendy. Yeah, and we'll double check if yeah. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so we have a Hector Cerecer, but we do not have a Wendy Cerecer on the official community steering committee.
We have a Wendy Lozano.
Oh yeah, that's my second last name.
Oh, okay.
And Hector, it's my son. So yeah.
Okay.
All right, you were mislabeled. We should
great.
record your vote.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying that. And Wendy, what was your vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll make sure that that is
And thanks
updated
for
on
the
our roster.
information.
We will definitely make that update. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you, and thanks for the information.
Great, excellent. Thank you.
And Julia, Gus is asking what is the final vote? If you don't mind to share the Excel spreadsheet and show the final tally.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I can share.
Gus.
Yeah.
And thank you. We do, and that's why we say that renaming process is so incredibly important. And we usually look at the official roster to double check who we did not have Wendy recorded properly. So Wendy, we appreciate your chiming in and letting us know.
Thank you. Excellent. So this is the final vote, 39 yes and 0 no. And we will, we'll have I think it's important to have an abstain column as well to make sure that if anyone feels like they didn't get to read the content or don't understand what the vote is about, or if there's anything that, if they want to recuse themselves because of conflicts of interest, there's various reasons to need to abstain. So I think that is important to make sure that you can share that you would like to abstain. So we'll make sure that that's an option in the future and can be reflected here as well. So thank you. Of course, we want to make sure everyone is up to speed at all times and is understanding everything that we are voting on. And so that's, our top priority is that everyone is making informed decisions to really contribute and participate. So excellent. And I want to make sure, are there any other public comment that came through any of the channels?
Yes, I got one thing. The young lady who wanted my phone number, she could talk to Bianca. She got my number. If she wants to locate me, I'll speak with her.
Great, excellent.
Speak with her and then we'll get from there.
Okay,
Thank
perfect. You. Thank you, Mario. Excellent. And thank you, Kevin, for your comment on our exercise in democracy. This is definitely, I think we're, again, this is an experiment around getting a little faster at the voting. So the breakout groups, I think, did help, and we'll continue to refine that as well. So we appreciate everyone's patience and getting through this. So excellent. With that, I want to say thanks to all of you for your contributions and to our presenters for the extremely important information to really set the stage for this process that we'll go through together. So appreciate it, and thank you all, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Absolutely. Good night.
Buenas